Okay, so let's move on to the SQA. First, we are going to do Java-based web test automation. That is unit test automation. University has not given you any note for that, but they have asked questions in the exams. Okay, they have asked questions in the exams. But no note published by the university, just the syllabus. Okay, but I have given you a separate uh, note on that because university has not given you any note, and also some links so that you can go and uh, visit these links and further understand the subject. Okay, right. So I will be using this particular note, our note, because no UCSC note for that. Okay, right. So that is basically unit testing or Java based unit testing. Okay, unit testing. Uh, Right. So remember, we can automate different type of testing. Uh, one type of such testing is unit testing. And one of the easiest to automate is also unit testing because unit testing can be done at code level because units are also code, maybe methods, classes, and so on. Okay. So therefore, when we write a class, we can write a test class to test that particular class. So that class is the unit. And even we can test method level. And sometimes we can even test bigger modules. Bigger modules. We can go into methods, class, and set of classes. Also, we can consider as a unit. Right? So almost all the programming languages, we have unit testing frameworks. But we are going to look at only one such framework available for Java unit testing, that is TestNG. Okay. So TestNG, the advantage of TestNG is we can integrate it to our IDE, integrated development environment. And also we can integrate with build so that when you run your build means compile all your codes, run unit test, create the modules like jar files, war files, and even deploy it into the servers if it is a web application or something. So build is success means our code is in good health. So build fail means there are some blocking pack things that prevent the build. Okay. Right. So as I told you, there are different unit testing frameworks. For Java, the most popular are the JUnit and TestNG. Right? JUnit and TestNG. JUnit is the older guy. TestNG is the new one. So therefore, we will look at TestNG because TestNG has all the features of JUnit plus additional features. So similarly for C#.NET, we have NUnit and similar frameworks available for Python and so on as well. So you must know these things. They have asked what are the other frameworks available other than TestNG. For Java, we have JUnit. For C#, we have NUnit as well. And often we integrate unit test to the build system as well. Okay. So remember when we develop software, we use IDE like IntelliJ, PyCharm, Eclipse. Right? That is more convenient for us. But complicated software like enterprise applications and so on, web applications, so they have so many modules, right? So many dependencies. So then we need to have a build system and build system so that using tools, command line tools, we should be able to compile the modules based on their dependencies, run any unit test or any other test, build our components, deploy those in servers, and even do some smoke test, integration test. So those things can be done in build. So the build, what are the main tasks? Build your code, compile your code, build your modules, package them to jar files, EAR files, and also you can run your unit test, any other system test or integration test, and so on. Okay. So when it comes to Java language, there are two popular build systems. The older one is Ant, the new one is Maven. Both are Apache tools. Both are Apache tools. Okay. So we will be using little bit of Maven, just a tiny bit of Maven. Okay. Uh, and also we will be using TestNG. Of course, Maven is a build system. TestNG is our real framework. Okay. Real unit testing framework. But when we use TestNG, we often use a build system as well, even when we do our coding in our integrated environment. Okay. Right. So TestNG. So TestNG stand for Text Next Generation. It's a unit testing framework for Java. So this framework was built based on the earlier JUnit framework. And similarly, we have an NUnit for C#. Okay. So TestNG has almost all the features to write unit test, integrate it to the build, run it, generate reports, and so on. Right. So TestNG has some annotations, group your test into test cases, test suites, right? Parallel executions, dependency, maybe one test depends on some other test. For example, if text 1 is failed, no point running test 2. And some test depends on some other modules, other methods. And also it support configuring your test into test suites and so on using XML. So that gives you a lot of productivity, right? Right. How to write TestNG test cases, unit test cases. So I will explain how to do it in IntelliJ IDE. Of course, TestNG is TestNG. Even without any IDE, using Notepad command line also you can do it. But you know that in real world software development, for productivity, we always use IDE, build scripts, and so on, right? So therefore, I will explain how to use TestNG in IntelliJ IDE with the help of Maven build system. Okay, Maven build system. So Maven build system, IntelliJ IDE, TestNG. Of course, once you have the Maven script, without IntelliJ also, you can run it in command line as a build later. Right. So these are the steps we are going to do. Create a Maven project, add dependency to the TestNG in the Maven home.xml, write your code and test code, and run your test code. Okay. Right. So the main advantage of Maven over Ant is, remember, older build system for Java is Ant. Now Maven, actually now means we have been using Maven for last 20 years, more than 20 years. Okay. So that main advantage of Maven is the automatic dependency uh, management. So if a particular code depends on some other external libraries, so in Java, usually those are jar files. Sometimes A depends on B jar, B module. B depends on C module and D module. So that means when you use A, you need B, C, and D. So keeping track of all these modules is very difficult task. C depends on E depends on F. So then when you run A, you need B, C, D, E, F. So the beauty of Maven is you just specify this dependency and it will download all the other related dependencies for you. So that means you don't need to worry about these things. And also the compatible versions. Maybe version 2 depends on these version 3 and so on. Okay. So that make our work less complicated because we can just concentrate on our coding, software development, rather than worry too much about these dependency management. So that is why Maven is very popular, Apache Maven. So similarly, in Python also we have dependency management system. And today we are going to use that also when we do the web automation, web testing automation. Okay, right. So in Maven, that dependency management configuration file is called pom.xml. Right? Pom.xml. So if your project depends on a particular libraries or framework, you just need to tell it in the pom.xml. For example, when we write test unit test using testng, uh, you need to download and use testng's jar files because we are referring to some classes, annotations developed by testng project, Maven testng project. But we don't need to go to sites, download, blah, blah, blah. We just say there's a dependency to testng in our project, in our POM XML. And then during the build process, it will download all the related jar files. Not only the direct jar files, if that jar depends on other jar files, those are also downloaded. And any version issues are resolved. Okay. Right. So this is how you do it in IntelliJ. Okay. If you are more familiar with Eclipse or any other Java environment, just go to YouTube and uh, there are plenty of YouTube repo videos how to configure for Eclipse and other IDs as well. Right. So this is how you do it. You need to have the IntelliJ. Of course, we have been using IntelliJ from semester 1. Right. So you can just download and install if you haven't used it, or you use whatever your favorite uh, Java editor, but make sure you configure testng uh, in your favorite IDE by referring to some YouTube recordings. Okay, right. So in my case, I have the IntelliJ. I will explain it from beginning. Right, I will close my project. I will close my project and I will create a new project so that I will explain it from the beginning. So this is assume this is my normal IntelliJ. This is actually my normal IntelliJ that I have been using from semester 1. Let's go to file, new. It doesn't matter which JDK you are having, all right? But make sure you have the latest or the very new JDK. Otherwise, there can be some version issues with testng jar files, okay? So I have the latest IntelliJ and latest JDK because I configure this IntelliJ today, right, in a new machine. Okay, in a new machine. Uh, so therefore, I have the latest IntelliJ and the latest JDK that is downloaded by IntelliJ. Okay, so but don't worry if you're already having an IntelliJ, that perfectly okay. Right, so I'll create a new project, file, new project. You can give it a name. Okay, you can give it a name. I'll call it, say, sim 6 uh, JUnit, sorry, unit test ng So make sure you select Maven here. Not remember there are three options for build. IntelliJ build, that is IntelliJ handle the build, good for simple projects. Let Maven handle the build, or there's something called Gradle. Gradle handle the build. Okay, but we'll select Maven handle the build because that is easier for dependency management. And JDK, I have used the latest JDK I have. Whatever the JDK you have, don't worry. But okay, and that's it. Make sure you select Maven as the build system, right? So then you say create, right? I'll say this window. So then this is the only project I have, and also it has already opened the. So there's something called pom.xml that is added if you select Maven as the build system. Okay, Maven as a build system, and also it has added a one class that of course printing 1 to 5. Now with latest JDK in the main method, it's not a must to have string args as the uh, parameter for main method. Okay, so don't worry if you want, if you can have string args. Now with new JDK versions, you can just run it. Your main method is no longer required to have the string args. Right. So you can just run and double check whether it's working. Right click and run. Yes, it's working. Okay. Uh, so we are going to create a new, it has even created a package called org example. Anyway, we don't need a package, but maybe we can write all our code here. Or we can, right. So that is main.java. Then pom XML, uh, it is our configuration file, dependency configuration file. So it has given something called group ID, artifact ID, snapshot ID. These are when you package your application later. Okay, so but we are not going to use those things. So then what is the target JDK version, right? Source and blah, 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 because my JDK is 26. So these things Maven has included because Maven know what is your JDK. Right. So therefore, whatever the JDK should be okay because then Maven will pick your JDK and add these things. Right. So then because we are going to use test-ng, we are going to add a dependency here. Right. So dependencies you can add it after properties. Uh, so what is that dependency? You need to add these two dependencies. So this dependency is because test-ng use uh, self4j sort of a logging for auditing framework. So therefore, make sure you add both. Okay. So I'll just copy paste this dependencies part because currently I don't have any dependencies in my POM file. Okay. So just below the properties, you can copy paste. Control P. Right. So I have just pasted it. Sometimes this will be in red, right? Especially if you are first using test-ng, definitely this will be red. Whether it's red or not, after adding these things, what you should do is right-click your POM file in your editor, and then there's a menu option called Maven, and then say Maven. There's an option called synchronize project. So synchronize project means uh, your IntelliJ will download all the relevant jar files that you mentioned in the dependencies section, right? So here nothing happens because already it's synchronized because I have already used Maven in my IntelliJ. But otherwise, there you will see some messages showing some download of jar files. Okay. But here nothing like that because I have already run test ng in my IntelliJ. Okay, but when you do it, probably it will download some files. Okay, but when you do it for the first time. Okay, right. So that is very important. Now you can write your code and test code. So remember, in test-driven programming, usually we first write the test case and then write the code. Obviously, initially test will be fail, but when you gradually finish your coding, the unit test must gradually start passing, and at the end, all the test cases must be passed. That is the idea, but anyway, sometimes we do it parallelly, write a bit of code, write a bit of unit tests, and so on. Okay. Right. If anything is not clear, let me know because this is a very technical topic. So now we are into the technical topics of your QA, right? Automations, right? Automation. Right. So now I have added the dependency to my form XML, and also you can check under external dependencies, right? So you can see it has already downloaded this SF4J files. You can see, and also testng related packages. You can see org testng. Just double check. Okay, under external libraries. So that initially you may not have these, but once you right click in POM XML and when you say Maven synchronize project, all of a sudden you will see these reds going away. Of course, now it's not red, and these are getting downloaded, and you will see some messages. And when you do this, if you get any error, always talk to your AI agents like ChatGPT, Gemini, or if you have integrated AI agent like Claude in your J environment, just talk to that and get the help. Okay. Or just copy paste the error message to ChatGPT or Gemini. The agent will give you the guidelines to fix. These days, these are not big things, right? But anyway, if you can't figure it out, or with chat agents also you can't figure it out, just post it to the WhatsApp message group. I will help. It's very important that you do these things, okay? Practically. Right, so now I have set up my dependencies. Let's write a test case, unit test case. Okay. Right, so now we have done it. So usually we write our code under SRC here, and we write our test cases under test folder. That is a convention. Right? Under Java or Java or code, we have the code. So then there's a parallel package hierarchy for the test. So if there's a code called account, then there will be a test class called account test. If there's a class called order, then there will be in the under test, there will be a class called the test class called order test. So then it's very organized, well organized. By looking at the class, you know, okay, this class is the unit test for this particular corresponding class. Right. First, but we are not going to write any test classes yet. I'm going to delete the main class as well. But straight away, first we are going to write a small unit test class without writing the actual code. Right? Code, test code. But we are going to start with test code. Okay. Test code. I will write the form XML. And let's call this test case one. Test case one. It's normal Java class. But I will create it under test Java. Okay. New Java class. It's just a Java class. Uh, and I type my class name and enter. Right. So this is my test class. But I am not going to test any code yet because I have not written any code. But usually first we write the unit test and then write the actual code. Right. Uh, so then I will write my first test method For that, I need to import org testing annotations dot test class, which is part of testng package. Okay, testng. That is why we add that dependency to the form. Okay, that is why we added that dependency to the form. These classes are in basically org testng testing. Okay, so let's import it. Right. Import testing annotation uh, test. Okay, so that is the first thing. Sorry, org testing dot testing annotation testing. So then we'll write the our test method. I'll copy paste it because otherwise it will take more time. And we heavily use annotations. Remember in semester one you learned annotations, public void. Right. So this is my test method, hello test ng or hello test method. How do my test ng know that it is a test method? Because I have added an annotation called test. This is basically what I import here. It's test ng annotation class. So then test ng knows that this is a test method. This method must be run. And you can give any name. And here I am not doing any testing. I just want to print something. So I just want to see whether I can run this as a test, not as a normal code. Okay. And now I have a test class with one test method. How do you know that this is a test method? Because there's an annotation test. If the test annotation is not there, it's a normal method, not a test method. And now you can right click and run it. Just run it as a normal class. Usually you need a main method, right? Otherwise you can't run it. But if you have the testng set up in your POM file dependencies, and then if your method has the test annotation, still you can run it. You can see run is enabled. So this will be run by under the control of testng framework. Let me run it. Okay. Right. So why? Test case one. Class circularity error. That's a dependency error. Okay. Why is that? Okay, let me copy paste the entire code. Maybe I have made a small mistake somewhere. I don't think so. Just give me 1 minute. Control V. Public class. Right, so let me format it. And so let me run it again because I don't know whether there was any special characters earlier. Wait. Yeah, this time no issue. Earlier maybe some type special characters or something like that was there. Okay, so now you can see no errors. This is though it is red, it's just a logging. Okay, So you can see hello from test-ng because I have the system out println and hello from test-ng. And also below you can see default suit, total test run 1, pass 1, failure 0, skip 0. So that means only one test is there and that test is pass. Test is pass because I have not added any error or failures. If no failures, it is considered as pass. Of course, this test is a dummy test. This test always pass because it is actually not testing anything at all because we have only the test code, right? No actual code. But this is how you write a test. Okay. Now, if you have another test class, test method, you can just write another one. Make sure you have the test annotation. Right? Let's say by test ng. So let's say by from test ng run. So then I have two test methods. Two. Okay. You can see run 2, pass 2. Right? And also you can see the output coming. And this is the summary of the running test. Okay. Right? If anything is not clear, actually still we are just familiarizing with the test-ng framework, right? We are not testing any class because still we have not developed anything. So just explaining you the concept in test-ng and its support in IntelliJ, Maven, and so on. Right. So you just run it like a normal class, okay? Just like a normal class. Right. So then there are so many annotations available in test-ng. Those annotations tell test-ng what is the purpose of this method and some other things related to unit testing. Right. We already use test annotation. If you have a method with test annotation, it will be automatically run by test-ng as a test method. So it is considered as a test. Okay. So then we have something called before method. So if you have method with annotation before method, whenever test method is run, that this method with this particular annotation will be run. And then only methods with this particular test annotation is run. And if you have method with after method, so the best thing is let me write the code then explain, right? So then it's easier. Let's create another class. I'm creating classes under test, not main Java. Okay, so this is my source code path. This is source code path. I have not added any code yet. Right, let's call this new one Java class. Okay, test case 2. Test case 2. So I'll copy paste because otherwise it take more time. So this is the first part of the code, then continues the right hand side. Okay, so therefore make sure you copy paste both. So then the second part. Uh, right. Okay. Right. So you can see so many methods, but I will first use only before test and after test only. I'll comment all these. I'll just use before method, then uh, after method. I will comment other two. So otherwise you will get confused. Okay. Right. So here you can see I have two special methods. One is called, the name can be anything, even it can be foo. But you can see the annotation is before method. Then I have another method. You can give any name, but it has annotation after method. So then I have two test cases. Test method 1, test method 2. How do I know those are test method? Because there's annotation test. Right. So therefore, when I run this, my Maven identify this as a test ng test case, and it will run this particular method and this particular method. But remember, whenever test method is run, if there's a method with before method, it will be run. And then only the test method run. Then if there's a method with after method annotation, that will be run. So therefore the sequence will be before method will be run, then my test method one will be run, then after method will be run. So then it try to execute the test method two, but again the before method will be again run, then test method two will be run, and then again after method will be run. So therefore before method will be run twice, after method will run twice. That is once before test method one and after, and then test method two and after. So therefore output will be before method is run, test method one is run, after method is run. Then again before method is run, test method two is run, and after method is run. Okay, so let's run and see. And then your report will say two test cases are success, two pass, no failures. Why pass? Because these are just system out printed, like no errors. Right? You can see run, two pass. Uh, that is basically test method one, test method two, because those are the test method. But look at the output. Before method is executed, because whenever test method is run, if there's a method with before method, that will be first run. So then the test method is run, and then the after method is run. After method means this one. So it just say after method. So then again it try to run the test method two, but before that, again before method is run, then your test method two is run, and then after method is run. Is it clear? So whenever there's a test method, if you have a method with before method annotation, that will be always run before each and every test method, and after method annotation method will be run after each and every test method. Before method, after method for each and every test method. Right. So then what about the test suite? Sorry, forget about that. Then we have before class, after class. So that is I will uncomment before class and after class. So that is when you run a particular test method in a test class, always the first thing is if you have a method with annotation before class, that will be first run before running the first test method of that class. And after running your last test method of that class, it must run after class method if you have a method with after class annotation. So therefore now what will be the sequence? First it will run the before class method, then before method, then method one, then after method, then again before method, then test method two, then again after method, and then after class. Because after class method is, if you have method with after class annotation, that will be executed after end of after running all the method in that class, and there are any other after methods of method. Right. So therefore now output will be after class, of course, two methods are success. Sorry, before class, before method, method one, after method, again before method, method two, after method, then after class. Okay. So this is super important because this is very important concept. Then you might be wondering, why do we have this before method, after method, before class, after class? I will explain that also. So now we have another two, that is before suit and after suit. Remember, this method name can be anything, right? If you have before suit annotation, that will be executed before running a test suit. And if you have any method with after suit annotation, that will be run as the last thing. So then what is mean by suit? Right. So this is the idea. If you have anything not clear, let me know. This is not a difficult topic, but maybe it will take a bit of time for you to understand, right? To connect these concepts together, then only it will make sense. Okay. Initially, it may not make a lot of sense. Right. So now remember, we can have different test classes. Different test classes. Though we have only one. Now we also have two test classes now. Test case 1, test case 2. Then we can have concept called test suite. So test suite consists of set of test classes. But right now we don't have a test suite. Okay. Therefore, it will use something called default test suite. So then I have two test classes right now, not three, just two. And each has one or two test methods, right? So therefore, the first thing that happens is if you have method with before suit, that is the first thing to run. Last thing to run is if you have method with after suit annotation. So then you run the first test class. So then if there's a before class, that will be executed. After that class, after class. Before this class also, before class, after class. Then the after to suit. So then before each and every method, before method, then the method, after method. Again for the next method, before method, method, after method, and so on. Then for the, then again after class, then before class, then before method, method, after method, before method, method, after method, then after class. And if that is the last class, then the after suit, after suit. That is how it goes. So that means your test suite may consist of many classes, and each class can have many methods, each test class. Is it clear? So therefore, if you have a test suite, and if you have method with before suite, that is the very first thing to execute. And the very last thing to execute is after suite. Okay. Of course, this is my just one test case, right? But usually test suite means you have multiple test classes or test class or test case. So ideally my test case 1 and test case 2 must be part of the test suite. But in this case, my test 2 case 2 has a test default test suite. So therefore, this is not very practical, but again, you can see the very first thing is before suite, last thing is after suite. Then before class, here after class because we have only one class. Otherwise, this has happened many times. So then before method, method after method, before method, method after method, and so on. So then after class, after so. So it all your annotations. Okay. Is it clear? So still, I know you don't understand what is test suite is because in my case, these two are not in the test suite. Rather, this is my in my test suite. So therefore, my test suite has only one test class, and that test class has two test methods. But later we'll incorporate these two test classes into one test suite. Okay, one test suite. But you must know exactly how these methods, the sequence of method calls. Okay. Right, we'll get back to assertions later. Right, now I will explain what is a test suite. Right, what is a test suite? So test suite is set of test classes. Set of test classes to bundle together, we call it test suite. So then how to create a test suite? in order to create a test suite, TestNG has a concept called testing TestNG XML file. In TestNG XML file, you can define what are your test suites. Okay, what are your test suites? You can have multiple test suites also, and each test suite consists of multiple test classes. And each test class has multiple test methods and also before method, after method, before class, after class, and so on. Right. So make sure you create your testng XML file in the under the test folder. You create a folder called resources. Okay. And there you create it, or you create it in the root folder. But the best practice is create a new folder called resources, because that is where TestNG framework look for TestNG XML file. Right. So remember we have the SRC test, this one. Under that we have Java, where I have created classes, but maybe you can have the package hierarchy as well. But under test, let's create a new folder or directory. The name must be resources. Make sure you type spellings are correct, because otherwise it won't be picked. Resources, resources. Okay, and say OK, enter. Right, so this is under test. We have folder called resources, and this is where I'm going to create my testng XML file, where I can create my test suites. Testng XML file, all simple. Okay, under resources folder. Click on the resource folder, right click and say new. If there's no XML file here, then you can say just create a file. Right? So then name must be testng.xml. Okay, testng, usually we call ng capital, or we can keep it all simple. Yeah, let's keep it all simple. Testng.xml. Right. So now you can write your testng to create a test suite. Test suite. Right. Let me copy paste this. Okay, because this is a boilerplate. Usually you just need to keep adding classes. Okay. Right. So why I am having this particular issue, because I have some codes issues. Okay, issues with my codes. Suit, or maybe understood. You have the test. Why this is green? Because there should be some quotation, because I copied from PDF. Okay, these are code issues. Right. So now you can see this is not green, but here again, this is green means this is not, there's issue with my codes, because I copied from my PDF. Okay, that is the reason. Right. Same thing here. Maybe the issue is with this. Same problem here. Right. So let me test classes class. I'm just indenting so that it look okay. So this should go one level. So then suit. Okay. Right. So I am getting it. I think we don't need this one. Yeah, now it's okay. Right. So now I have created my testng XML file. I have created a test suite with the name example suite. And it has one test called example test. And that test that test involved test case 1 class and test case 2 class. I already have the test case 1 and test case 2. Now I have created test. If you want to format this, select this and go to code. There's something called format. Where is that? Yeah, reformat code. Okay. So that will format it nicely. Right. So now remember in my test case 2, I have a before suit, after suit, right? But this is in my test case 2, right? But now my test suite has both test case 1 and test case 2. So therefore now rather than running this case wise, I can run my test ng XML. That means I run my test suite. So go to the test ng XML in this Explorer, Project Explorer, right click, and then you say run. Or you can, sorry, you open that XML test ng file and right click, and where is the run? Can you see run or something? Let me check the note. Right click the test ng XML and run. Why my test ng is not having run? Ah, yeah, run is there. Sorry, now only I found it. Right, so right click the test ng XML file, and then there's something called run. Okay, run your test ng XML. So basically that will run test case 1 and test case 2. And of course it will run the before, if there's a before test, before suit in any of these classes, that will be the first thing to run. Then any before class, then before methods, methods after methods, before methods, methods after methods, then before after class. Then when you go to the next class, again before class, then before method, method after method, before method, method after method, then after class. And if that's it, if you have another class, again before class and so on, then at the end you have a before, sorry, after suit as well, right? After suit, if it is available in any of your test classes, right? So I run it. Now it's going to run both test case 1 and case 2, because you can see this test suite has two test case 1 and test case 2. And now you can see 4 tests have been run, 2 from test case 1, other 2 from test case 2. And also you should see, yeah, before suit, because this is a test suit. Last one is after suit. Okay, where is my after suit? Yeah, after suit. So then you have the before class. Okay. So where is my before class? Yeah, before class, because my first one doesn't have a before class, right? Make a before class එක නැති හන්ද කෙලින්ම run වුණා hello test ng by test ng. Okay, but my test case 2 has a before suit. Before suit එක කොහෙද තුනද ඉස්සෙල්ලාම run වෙනවා හැබැයි. Then before class එක run වෙනවා. Before class and before method, method after method, before method, method after method, then after class and after suit. එතකොට අර after class එකක් තියුනේ second test case එකේ විතරයි. ඒකන්ද පළවෙනි එකේදී before class after class තියුන්නේ නැහැ. So before method after method තියුන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක අහිංසක එකක් නේ. ඒකේ මුකුත් annotation test method විතරයි තියුනේ. ඒවයි තියුණා නම් එහෙම before method after method, before class after class. ඉතින් ඒවත් run වෙනවා method එක වටේ. Okay. Right. Is it clear? So what is a test case? Sorry, what is a test suite? And test suite can have multiple test cases or test classes. And each test case or test class can have multiple test methods. And also you can have before method, after method, before class, after class, before suit, after suit methods as well. Maybe one or more of your classes. Okay. Right. Is it clear? Right. So then still you can see I have test classes, but no real class, right? Why is that? So let's create a real code. Okay, real code. So otherwise, this is a crazy thing, right? Because we don't write any real code, but we write test code. Okay, so let's write a class under Java. I'm not going to use the package right now. Java, new Java class. I will say count. Now I'm making it more realistic. Right. So let's say we have balance, say string, uh, say ACCT num, then say double balance. Okay. Two instance variables. Maybe class variable interest rate. Say static final. දැන් මේවා ගැන හොඳ idea එකක් තියෙනවනේ. හරි. Static final interest say double මේකනේ float දෙන්නක් තියුණා. Interest rate. So let's say the value is okay, not equal interest rate equal, let's say 0.1, that is 1%, 10%, right? Okay. Let's write two methods, deposit, withdraw. Say void deposit. Say double amount. So then balance equal, make it a semester one lola. Balance plus ඕන this dot කියලා ලියන්නත් පුළුවන් ඒ අත්‍යවශ්‍ය නැහැ. Plus amount. නැත්නම් plus equal amount. Okay. So then withdraw. මම මේ practically කොහොමද ලියන්නේ කියලා කියන්නේ. හරිනම් මේක ටෙස්ට් මෙතඩ් එක මෙතඩ් ටික ලියලා තමයි කෝඩ් එක ලියන්නේ. මේක minus balance minus amount. Okay. Right. Balance. දැන් අපි පොඩි ටෙස්ට් කේස් එකක් ලියමු මෙතන. දැන් මම කෝඩ් එක ලියලා ටෙස්ට් කේස් එක ලියනවා. So I call it test account. Test account. Account කියන class එකේ test class එක. Okay. මම මේ test case 2 එකේ copy එකක් ගන්නවා පොඩ්ඩක්. මට ඔක්කොම methods ඕනේ නෑ හැබැයි. test account. මම නම වෙනස් කරනවා test account කියලා. හරි මම මේ before method එකකුයි after method එකකුයි ඕන ලියන්නම්. ඕනම් before class එකකුයි before method එකයි after method එකයි after class එකයි after suit ඕනේ නෑනේ මේකද අර suit එක අපි වෙන තැනක ලියවන්නේ. So I'll say before account is created. අනිත් එක ලියන්නම් මම after account is created කියලා after class එකේ. මම before methods නොදා ඉන්නම්. හරි after methods උඩට තවත් වැඩ වැඩිනේ. අපි test method එකක් විතරක් ලියමු. එක method එකක් ලියමු. Right, I want to test the deposit behavior. Right, deposit. I call it test deposit. So now I am going to deposit a value and check if we have the current balance now. correct balance. දැන් මේකට account object එකක් තියෙනවනේ. ඒතර ඕනනම් මේ account එක object එකකින් මේ ඔක්කොම test කරන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙනම් අපිට හොඳම වැඩේ තමයි account object එක හදන්න පුළුවන් මොකද before class එකේ. මොකද class මේ test code එක run වෙනකොටම අපි එකපාර object එකක් හදලා තියාගන්න. මේ deposit test එකට withdraw test එකට වැඩ ගන්න. Okay. So maybe we can even have a class like this. අපි දැන්ට මේක නිකන් run කරලා බලමු. ඊට පස්සේ count object එක දාමු. නිකන් run වෙන්න එපා. ඒක කොහොමද? හරි. say running test deposit. Test deposit. ඒ වගේ අපි test withdraw කියලා එකකුත් ලියමු. දැන්ට තියෙන්නේ before class එකයි after class එකයි test deposit එකයි විතරයි. Okay. අපි මේක run කරන්න පුළුවන්ද කියලා බලන්න. ඔක්කොම දැන් test pass වෙන්න ඕනේ මේකෙත්. මම මේක run කරේ මෙයා විතරයි. මේ error එකක් එනවා account class එකෙන් balance වල spelling mistake එකක් තිබිලා. balance. මොකද අරව compile වෙනවා. Right. So now let's get back. Yeah, compile උනේ නැහැ ඉස්සෙල්ලා. Right. Obviously the test only one test, that is test deposit here pass. ඊට කලින් before class after class run වෙන්නේ නැති. Okay. After class it was method before method after method තුනේ ඒවත් run වෙනවා. I think the best thing, because I am going to write another test class test method called withdraw test. Test withdraw. දැන් මේ practically කරන විදිය හරි. Running test withdraw. දැන් මට මොනවා කරන්නද account object එකක් තියෙන්න බෑ. හරි. මම transfer කරනවා account object දෙකක් තියෙන්නත් ඕන. දැන් ටිකක් ගමු. Right. So the best place to create the object is before class, because then it is this method is already created. Maybe we can have test account object here, account, say ACCT1 for ACT1. මෙයා හදමු අපි හොඳම දැන මෙන්න මෙතන. say මොකද මේක රන් වෙලානේ මේක එතකොට අනිවාර්යෙන් account object එක හැදිලා. හරියට construct එක වගේ. ACT1 equal new account. Okay. ඇයි error එකක් තියෙන්නේ? නෑ error එකක් නෑ. දැන් මට මේ test deposit method එකේදී ACT1 එක පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්, because guaranteed this is already executed before you come to any other method. So therefore මම මේක ඇතුලේ කරනවා. මම මෙයාට පොඩි deposit එකක් ගන්නවා. මොකද තාම සල්ලි එකක් සතයක්වත් නැහැ නේද? ACT1 dot deposit අපි 1000 deposit කරමු. දැන් මෙයාගේ balance එක තියෙනවා කීයද? 1000 නෙමෙයි නේද? error එකක් තියෙනවා. අපි කියමු මේ වගේ පෙන්වන්න ඕනේ නැහැ කියලා. Do not show hints. So then maybe we need another method to get balance. මෙතන තමයි method එක ලියලා මොකද්ද? Get balance. Get එකයි set එකයි. මොනවාටද? balance වලට. ඕනනම් කියලා generate කරන්නත් පුළුවන් getter setter කියලා. generate අපිට ඕන get එක විතරයි ඇත්තටම. account balance එක. get balance. දැන් අපි get balance එකෙන් අරගමු අතනදී value එක. So then now we want to check whether the balance should be now 1000. If we have proper implemented, now the balance must be 1000. So balance එක අරගෙන බලන්න ඕන 1000ද කියලා. මොකද අපිනේ test case එකේදී අන්න ඒවල තමයි assert තියෙන්නේ. There's something called assert equal. Assert equal. assert equals actual value, expected value, error message if expected is different from actual. Sorry, actual is different from expected. Right? Assert කියන class එකේ තියෙන්නේ. ඒකට අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලා import කරන්න වෙනවා ඒක class එක. Because we are going to use assert. Right? So then I can say assert dot assert equals. Okay, so the first one is actual. Actual අපිට එන එක දැන් ගන්න කොහොමද? ACCT1 ගේ ACCT1 dot get balance. Sorry, ACT1 dot get balance. ඒකට method value. ඒක සමාන වෙනවනේ කීයටද? 1000 වලට. ඒක අපි දන්නවනේ දැන්. So that is expected value. error message එක තමයි ඔයාලට කැමති error message එකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. හරි? deposit fail. Deposit fail. Test fail. Or something like that. 3 parameters. Hint පෙන්නන්න එපා කියන්නේ අපිට hint ඕනේ නැහැ. Okay, so this is the actual value, this is my expected value, this is the error if actual is different from expected. හරියට මම implement කරලා නම් තියෙන්නේ මෙතන account class එකේ 1000 කියලා එන්න ඕනේ හැබැයි. That means test pass, otherwise test fail. Okay, so assert equals දැන් අපි මේක run කරමු. අපි මේ test suite එක විදිහට run කරනද මෙයා තනියෙන් run කරමු. test account එක run. Right, you can say 2 tests, 2 pass, no failures. දෙවෙනි කොහොමද pass මොකද මේ test withdraw එක තාම clear නැහැ. කොහොමද clear නැහැ. හදිසියවත් මට ආව කියමු 1000 නෙමෙයි වෙන මොකක් හරි එකක්. අපි તો මේ deposit method එක මම හරියට implement කරලා නැහැ. මම වරද්දලා මෙතන minus දාලා. minus දාලා. එතකොට වෙන්නේ -1000. දැන් අනිවාර්යෙන් test fail වෙනවා. මොකද මගේ අතින් වැරද්ද ඒක තමයි test ලියන්නේ. වරදිනේව හල්ල ගන්න. Now if I run this test fail. You can see test fail. Run 1, 0 pass, failure 1. Why? Because what I get is -1000. What I expect is +1000 because there's a bug in my code. Why? There's a minus. So now I need to fix that bug. That is the purpose of writing unit test. Okay. So now if I run this, my test account, now again test must pass. Okay. මේක බිල් කරමු අයියා. ඒ සමහරවිට හිටුවන් වෙන ක්ලාස් කිව්ල කියලා මේ ක්ලීන් බිල් කළගමු. Sorry, not debug. ඒ ඔක්කොම ටික රන් වුණා. හරි. Run. So now again to test pass. දැන් ආට තේරෙනවා ඒක ඇත්තටම කරන්නේ ඔන්න ඔහම තමයි. හරි. මේ after class එකේ මුත් කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. because Java කොහොමද garbage collect වෙනවා. But if you want to get a database connection or something for your test, the best place is before class. Then release the database connectivity after class. But if you need the database connectivity for not one class, one test case, multiple test cases, so then the best place to get the database connectivity is before suit. Release the database connectivity after suit. Likewise, there are practical usages. So that is why we have before suit, after suit, before class, after class, before method, after method, and so on. Okay. Is it clear? Okay. දැන් කතන්දරේ තේරලා තියෙනවා. Right. තව චූටි theory චුට්ටක් තියෙනවා දැන්. Right. So already I explained the test before method, after method, before class, after class, before suit, after suit. Okay. And there are different assertions. I just use assert equal. So then there are some similar things, not only assert equals, there are some other asserts as well. But you don't need to worry too much about other asserts. Just maybe assert equal is good enough for you. මෙතන ඩොට් එකක් ගමට අනිත් තියෙන assets වර්ග බලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. Asset equals එක එක තියෙනවා variations with different data types and so on. Okay. And also assert equals dpat, assert equals no order, right? And blah blah blah. Assert false, assert not equals, ඔන්නෝම ගියකේ කතන්දර වගේක් තියෙනවා. ඒවා අපිට ඕන වෙන්නේ නැහැ ඔයාලට assert equals කියන එක දැනන් හිටියම ඇති. Okay? මොකද මේක තමයි වැඩි 99%ම පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. දැන් මෙතන නම් ඔය දෙකම hard code කරලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ දෙකේ අකුරක් හරි වෙනස් වෙච්ච ගමන් test fail. Right, so then we have test dependency. So sometimes, now remember, if you have a before method, always that is called before any test method. And after method is always called after any test method. But other than that, because that is for each and every test method, maybe a particular test method has a dependency to another method. That means before running this test method, the dependent method must be run. So then you can mark that as depends on method. For example, whenever you run this particular test, right, login test, you must run access dashboard method. So then you can see in that it's also test, but you can see depends methods login. So that means this test depends on this test. Okay, so therefore, before running this, you need to run this. Right. No, before running this other way, sorry. Okay. So this method depends on this because you can't access dashboard without login. Sorry, it's other way. So therefore, though this test method is above, before this test method is run, it must run this test method. Because this test method says it depends on login test method. So therefore, though this test method usually runs from top to bottom, right? But because of this depends on, before this test method is run, it makes sure that this test method is run. That is why the output is login success and then access dashboard. So likewise, you can say this test method depends on the other test methods and so on, so that it execute the test in proper order. For example, book return can be test only after book borrow is done, right? And so on. Right. I'm not going to run these things. You can copy paste and run it and see, and just run, right click and run it. Okay. So then we have test priorities. Test priority. So each test can have a priority. It's also like dependency, but not really. Dependency is a very solid one. If X depends on Y, so then first Y must be run before X. Priorities are not like that. Priority means high priority test will be run before low priority test. Not because there's a dependency, but in general as a policy. So highest priority is priority 0. If you haven't specified the priority, it is considered as highest priority or priority 0. Then priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and so on. Okay. If multiple test cases have this or methods have same priority, it will run from top to bottom. Okay. Okay. So remember, the lowest value is the highest priority. Sometimes you get confused, right? Highest priority is priority 0, then priority 1, then priority 2, priority 3. If you have two priority three test cases, the above test case will be executed before the below one. Right. So here you can see priority two test case. These are not dependencies, priorities. And this one has no priority set. So therefore, this is the highest priority. So therefore, this will be the first to run. Okay, you can see test default priority. So then it will run this one, run in test A. Then it will run this, run in test B. And then it will run this, run in test 3. Because biggest value means lowest priority. Highest priority is priority 0. Priority 0, either you can specify, or if you haven't specified the priority, it is priority 0. This is not dependency, this is priority. Okay. But these two concepts are like somewhat similar, but two different concepts. And I already explained about how to use test-ng to create a suite and right click and run your test suite. Okay. Right. Now we are into the final part, that is you can generate test reports also by test-ng. Test reports. So far, we can see the test results in our console, or if it is a build, in the build output, right? Like this. For example, I can write the test-ng. Now I have not included my test account to here. If I want, I can add that also, right? So test account. So then those two test method, but I have not incorporated the withdraw method yet. Okay, it will be automatically part. And now I will run. Now there will be 6 test cases, test methods, 6, 2 from each. You can see 6 and all 6 pass. All 6 pass. Right in a before suit, after suit, after suit is the last one. Then before class, after class, තියෙනවා හරි class එක ලියලා තියෙනවා. Okay. Right. So then, because this is not persistent, right? That's in the console. So we can ask testng to generate a report. Which test cases pass, which test cases fail, right? Summaries and so on. So how to do that? Because then it's basically this, that's all you need to understand about testing, nothing else. Okay. Right. So we can create a generator report. This is not important for your exam. Okay. So you can create a folder called report under the root folder. Okay. Report. So let's create a folder called report under root. Under root. Okay. New directory. Report. So then copy that path. You can copy that path by going to the project root and say open in Explorer. Right. So this is where your physically your project is now. And go to that report folder and copy the path. Copy the path. So then go to the project, run, right? Select the project, your menu run. There's something called edit configuration. So there are something called default output directory. We are going to write the test report to this particular directory. Now you can see it's empty. Just paste the report folder. And paste the report folder. So therefore, that will be the place where your test-ng reports are saved. So then you need to do one more thing. Okay, one more thing. That is add emailable report to the listener. There's something called listener here. Add and enter just emailable listener. So the emailable reporter. So then you are done. Okay. Right. So let's do that also. So here you can see listeners. I already added the report folder here. Listeners, add, just search emailable. You can see already I got it. Emailable reporter to, just add it. Uh, that is different report formats. Okay, so this is emailable report. Depending on your requirement, you can generate different formats of reports. And then you can say, okay, now run it. Let's run the test suite form. Sorry, my test ng file under resources. And then the report will be generated under re, uh, report folder. Okay, now the report folder has nothing, but now I'm going to run it again after that configuration. Okay. Right now, if you go to the report folder, you can see there's a HTML file generated. Of course, here you can see the result, all six pass. But now, right click and say open in your browser. Open in whatever the browser, right? Browser. In my case, I will say my Firefox browser. And this is the test report. Right? Test account, both are pass. Test case one test pass. Okay. Other one, nothing to pass because it has nothing mentioned. Okay. But nothing has failed. Nothing has failed, and also summary and so on. Okay. And when you have more and more test cases, and of course, if there's a test case fail, that will be also be showed. For example, let's introduce a bug again. Let's say my account class has a bug. My deposit has a wrong logic minus. So now definitely my test will fail. One of the tests will fail, right? I will again run test suite. Okay. Now it should be the same file. You can see now you don't have to refresh also. Now you can see this test is fail. Test account is fail. Other test stuff, they are pass. Okay. So then whenever when a developer make a mistake, all of a sudden some unit test can be fail. So then we can early pick that there are some issues, unit test issue, because finding issues at unit test level is the best, because then we can quickly fix it. Right. So that's it. Any questions? Right. So let's do a few past paper questions. These are very easy past paper questions now. Right. 2023 question 4A. TestNG is a testing framework for Java programming language. Name two unit testing frameworks that were mainly used to develop TestNG frameworks. So remember, TestNG framework was inspired by JUnit and NUnit. Those are the older things. Actually, NUnit was built using JUnit for .NET, and then based on JUnit and NUnit, they build the TestNG, right? JUnit and NUnit. Right, 2023 question 4B. They have given you a test class, test ng class with test priorities, before methods, after methods, and before suit, after suit. And you are supposed to write the output when you run this. So what will be the very first one to run? Because this is just one class. This is right, one class test suit. So the very first one will be before suit. Right? Before suit. So before suit, that is where is before suit? Yeah, before suit is here. So first output will be C. C. And the last output will be after suit. Again C, last output. Now it will be before class. if you have before class method, right? No before class method. So therefore now you can see uh, we have before, sorry, we have before test. So before test is same as before class. I forgot to mention that, right? So before class and before test are the same. So therefore now after before suit, before test, that is B, and after test. So this is before test. After test is immediately before after suit. After test, then after suit. Now we are into the first method. Remember, this one has zero priority. This one has one priority one. So therefore, the first one to run is this, because this has zero priority. But whenever there's a test method, if there's a before method, it will be run first. So therefore, A, before method. Then zero priority test one. Then after method, because this method is now done, after method, that is also A. And okay, now we are going to run this test, but before that, there's a before method, A. Then this test, priority one test. Then after method is also A. And then after test or after class, after suit. And if you know your subject, you can definitely write the output. Right? Before suit, after before suit, then before class or before test, then before method after method, before method after method, then again after class or after test, then after suit. But if you have multiple classes, when you move on to the second class, then there be another before test or before class. Okay. Right. So there are some more questions in other MCQs as well. Like 2024 also pretty much similar question is there. You should be able to do it. Okay. So 2022 is the one that we just look at, right? Yeah. So 2023, 2022 also there were some questions. So we have done all these. Yeah. So again, they ask from which they inspired test NG, J unit and N unit. And again, before, after that question, similar question. Okay. Right. So that's it. Now we have done one more topic. Now we have three more topics to finish. That is web testing, test reporting, and continuous integration. Right? Three more topic. All three are out of these three, two are technical, one is non-technical. Right. So we'll take a break. After the break, let's do the web testing using Selenium. Right? Web testing using Selenium, because for that you have a UCSC note and also our note. I have prepared a separate note because the practical aspects are not much detailed covered in your UCSC note. Okay, so we'll cover both, and it's another practical session. Uh, okay, uh, right. So we'll start at, because we want to finish now your topics quickly. Uh, right, we'll start at, say now to 8:40. We start at 9. Continue. Now we move on to our next topic. So then we have two more topics to finish. That is web testing with Selenium. So this is not a unit testing. This is more system testing framework. First, I will go through the UCSC note. Then we'll get back to the, because it has some theoretical aspect. So then we'll get back to the our note. Okay. So we have already done XML-based test automation, including XPath. Okay. Right. Automated test suites for web application. So this is testing the application, not code, right? So what we discussed previously is testing your units, code units, methods, classes. Okay. That is unit testing. This is system testing. Right. In this section, you will be introduced to the concept of automated testing suites for web applications. And here it will be a system testing. Right. So automated testing suites for web applications are designed to test functionality, performance, usability, and so on. But this one, Selenium is, of course, Selenium we can use for, mainly we use for functional testing, but at the same time, we can use it for performance testing as well, like apply uh, load, but there are specialized tools for that rather than Selenium, like test load runner and so on. So when it comes to web application testing, it's not only Selenium. Selenium is a free version, free and open source uh, version, but there are some others like Test Cafe, Cypress, and so on. So you better remember these names as well, but you can concentrate on Selenium. Right, intended learning outcomes. At the end of this lesson, you must have a understanding about the basic concepts of Selenium, right? Basic concepts of Selenium. Identify different type of architecture, layers in automated testing suites, and the purpose of using recorders and use of Selenium API to automate testing. So use of recorders is easy. We record the test and then execute it many times. But use of API means we code it. It's more time consuming, but at the same time, it's more flexible. So basically, we use mixture of both. Some tests we can do using recorders. Some tests we need to use the code level. Right? Code level means we don't test the code, rather we code the test using the API, like programming. But this is not done by the software developers. This is done by QA engineers who are good at coding. Right. So list of subtopics. Right. We have already discussed about types of automated testing. So then introduction to Selenium, components of Selenium suite, advantages and limitation of Selenium. Okay. And also the architecture of the Selenium framework and how to automate testing using Selenium framework, web testing. Okay. Right. So we will look at how to use Selenium for recording test and run it. And then that is using the Selenium IDE. Actually, those are plugins for the browsers. Right. Some more recorders and limitations of recorders. Of course, recorders are the easier to use, but limitations are there. Right. And some best practices. So then we'll move on to how to use the API, Selenium API to do testing. That is pretty much coding, Java coding, Python coding, and so on. And how to locate element, that is where we can use XPath or something similar to XPath provided by Selenium. And interacting with elements, that is accessing a particular text box, button, invoke a button, write type value to the text box, submit. Okay. And also when you click on a one button, maybe there will be a pop-up window. When you submit, there's another window and so on. Okay, so it's very fairly complex task. It's not very easy working with Selenium API, but this is relatively easy task. Use of recorders because it doesn't involve coding. Right. So when it comes to Selenium API, you need to learn how to use the wait command because sometimes when you click on a URL, it takes some time for the web page to load. Or when you submit, maybe it take few seconds, 2, 3 seconds until you get the next page. So how to use the wait command, otherwise your test will fail because you know that these tools are super fast, so therefore it will say, okay, I don't get the resulting page, but actually it takes a bit of time, so therefore you need to keep it, wait, and then check. Right? And also handling alerts, pop-ups in Selenium, because sometimes when you click on a button or something, then all of a sudden you get a pop-up window, alerts, and best practices in using the API, best practices in using the recorders, best practices in using the API. So this is beyond your exam, right? Of course, passing the exam is important, but maybe you want to have a career in QA engineering and even software engineers or anyone. So you must know what the QA engineers are also doing, right? Right. So therefore, these web application testing tools are used to test any web applications on browser. Okay. And usually these are fairly complex systems, like it can be a banking system, online e-commerce system, or even fully fledged online ERP system. So therefore, these things will take a lot of time, resources. So that is why we try to automate as much as possible, especially repetitive tests like regression testing and so on, smoke test. If you just do one or twice, of course, no point automating, right? Because we just test it. Right. So there are popular web test automation tools. So yes, we will be using Selenium. It's open source. And also you can write your test AP, the code level testing using multiple languages like Java, Python, C Sharp, even JavaScript and so on. Because it's a free and open source versions. So then we have another one called Cypress, which is a JavaScript based testing framework. But this is the most widely used one. Another one is Test Cafe, which is another JavaScript based testing framework. All are web testing frameworks. There is another one, Puppeteer. It's a Node.js based. Okay. Right. So we have already discussed about, right, what is unit test, integration testing. Let's not discuss again, right? End-to-end testing, that is like system testing. Right. So Selenium is mainly used for system testing, or in some cases, security testing, performance testing, and so on as well, like non-functional. So Selenium allows you to simulate the use of application, simulate either using recorders or API. And it supports almost all the major browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Edge. But I found that the latest Selenium plugin is disabled by Chrome saying, sorry, not, yeah, Chrome saying you can have some uh, security issues. But it used to work. But today, when I try to use it before your class, I just double check whether it is still working. I found that all of a sudden Chrome plugin is not working. So then I had to download and install the Firefox plugin. That is what I'm going to use for this session. Okay, Firefox plugin, because Chrome plugin, I found that it's not supported due to security, or but maybe they will fix it again. But in general, Selenium support all the browsers. In general, maybe some issues, temporary issues here and there. Right. So these are the major component of Selenium. This is very important for your exam. What are the components? So they ask questions from Selenium. So the components are Selenium WebDriver, Selenium IDE, Selenium Grid, Selenium Remote Control. Okay. Those are the four components of the Selenium. So we don't need all four components. Sometimes, yes, but sometimes we don't need all four. It depends on whether you are going to use the Selenium API, or are you going to use recording, test recorders, and so on. Right. So what is mean by Selenium WebDriver? Okay. So it provides different drivers for different browsers like Chrome, Firefox, Safari, etc. Each browser we have a Selenium driver to interact with that browser, because your web applications are run on browsers. And also we need to test whether it work on Firefox, Chrome, because there can be some small issues because of some incompatibilities. So therefore, most of the time we want to test in all the browsers, all the major browsers, not just one browser, because we never know which browser users will use. If it is an internal application, we can say, okay, you must access it only using Chrome, or you must access it only using Firefox. But if it is general public, like e-banking system, e-commerce system, so then we need to test it for each and every major browsers. Right, Selenium WebDriver. Next, we have the Selenium IDE. So these are the plug add-ons for browser. So basically, Selenium IDE means either you download and install Chrome plugin, Firefox plugin, or Edge plugin. Okay, Edge plugin. So we can download that. Okay. So this is mainly for API level coding. This is mainly for recording level testing. This is API code level testing. Code level means you write your test cases by coding it. This is more advanced, technical, time consuming, right? This is faster. Even non-technical person can do it. But there are situations you need to use a mixture of those. Third component is Selenium Grid. So this is used to test in distributed environments. Okay. Like remote machines, you test this in parallel remote machines and so on. So it's a sort of advanced component. We are not much interested about that. Okay. So we use certain terminology here like nodes, hubs. Okay. So nodes are the Selenium instances, and hub is something like a server. Okay. So the fourth one is Selenium remote controller. So that is again a advanced component to inject dependency component and so on for the browsers. Okay. But we are more interested in either Selenium IDE, that is for recording level, high level testing, Selenium WebDriver, that is code level testing. The code level means we write the test, we write code the test, but actually we test the UI. Right. So there are different web testing frameworks. So what are the advantages of Selenium? Because these are the common questions. So number one is cross-browser compatibility. So we have plugins for Chrome, Firefox, Edge, and so on. Selenium. So therefore, you don't need different tools. You can just use the same tool to test in multiple different browsers. And also it supports multiple programming languages. That is when you do code level testing by writing code. Maybe you can write your test using Java or using Python and so on. Okay. So that is writing your test. Maybe your web application is not JS, JavaScript, CSS, HTML. Okay. But you can write it using Java, your test cases. Maybe you can write your test cases using Python. And of course, we have the record and playback feature that is without going into code level, which is super helpful to just record the test case and execute it multiple times. And of course, we can integrate it with other tools such as continuous integration systems, build, and so on. Right. What are the limitations of Selenium? And remember, Selenium is free and open source as well. Okay. So limitation. Selenium is targeted at testing web applications, not for desktop application. That is a limitation. Okay. And also it has less support for mobile application testing. Right. So remember, mobile applications are special kind of a web application. But Selenium has less support to the mobile features. And also, especially if you are going to code the testing, it can take a lot of time. Okay, lot of time. Sometimes you may feel like we could have better manually run it, maybe even many times. Maybe we want to test it's a major test for each and every release. Maybe we have 5 releases. Maybe sometimes you feel like, okay, let's manually test those 5 releases rather than try to automate this. But there are situations automation is always good. Sometimes you may be using that application for next 10 years. Like for example, if you take something like WhatsApp, its UI has not changed much, right? For the last, I maybe 10 to 20 years. But they frequently have releases. So if you have automated certain tests, each release we can just run those tests, and of course we are not going to rely 100% on those tests, but it's a very good health check. Right. So architecture of automated testing suites for web applications. So these are the 4 components, okay, what we discuss. Selenium WebDriver, Selenium IDE, Selenium Grid, Selenium remote control. So this is depending on the way how we are going to do the testing. So first one is record and playback architecture. This is the simpler approach. Simpler approach. So you record the test once and you can run that many times, any times, as long as the UI has not changed or functional flow has not changed. But if the functionalities UI has changed, you need to re-record it from the beginning again for that particular scenario. Right. Another architecture is keyword-driven architecture. Okay. So that is something very rarely used, right? Usually what we like is record and playback. In this architecture, we have some predefined keywords and commands to interact with the application. So it's not hard and fast like record and playback. Record and playback is very rigid. We record and we execute the exact thing, but keyword-driven architecture is in between flexibility, some flexibility, but not 100% flexibility, and also not 100% rigidity. But again, you need some upfront planning effort to go for keyword-driven architecture as well. So the other one is data-driven architecture. So that is good when we have a lot of different combinations of data and test it. Like maybe different ranges of data, how it is going to behave. Because manual testing can be frustrating, time consuming. Maybe it's a good idea. So then we say it's a data-driven architecture. Right? So far we have discussed data-driven architecture, keyword-driven architecture, and record and play. So the last architecture is called module. This is the here architecture means how we develop the solution, test suite. Module architecture. It's like when the application is complicated modules, we can test, design our test and execute also module wise. That is called module architecture. Fifth one is page object model architecture. So that is more suitable for static type of a web application where you go from one page to the other, then hyperlink, submit. Okay. Okay. Right. Our next subtopic is layers in automated testing. Layers. What are those layers? Uh, Test layer, automation layer, and framework layer. Right. So these are little bit not much used concepts, okay, because this is not developing a software, designing a software, rather designing test, automated test. Right. What are those layers? Test layer, automation layer, framework layer. Okay. Right. What is test layer? So this is where the actual test cases are created. This is just abstract view. Okay. Because we are interested in automation, this is where we write our test cases, automated test code, or record those test layer. And automation layer is executing those test cases. executing. First we write, then execute. So the next one is framework layer. So it gives you a structure for your automated test. Stability structure. Okay. Test layer, automation layer, framework layer. It's not very important, but when the examiner is running out of questions, even examiner can ask these questions. What are the three layers? Right. As I told you, the easiest way to do web testing is use of recorders and playback. So that means you just go through a business flow. Maybe you first log in, say it's an online banking system. So you log in, then select your transaction, say money transfer, then select the from account to account, fill any other details, amount and so on, then submit. So then what happens inside? Because we should know, right, the functionalities. Okay. So test recorders are very easy because you just do it like an end user, but whatever you are doing is all recorded by your Selenium. It's recorded. If you make a mistake or something like that, it can be detected. Okay. Right. So these are the recorders like Selenium ID, Catalan recorder, and so on. So remember, Selenium ID is used for what? Test recording, not code level testing by writing code to test it. So these are basically browser plugins. For Chrome, we have a plugin. Firefox, we have a plugin. But today I found that the Chrome plugin is not working. Maybe they will fix it again. Okay. Right. So Selenium has a recorder. Right. So this is another recorder called Catalan recorder, which is related to Selenium recorder. Okay. So there are recorders are the easiest to use, but at the same time, it has a lot of flexibility issues because recorders may not capture all the aspects of the user behavior, and some of the user interactions may be very complicated. So therefore, we can use recorders, but don't 100% rely on recorders. Maybe certain flows recorders are good, but some other cases you need some manual interactions. That means some parts are automated, not record and playback by code level. Right. So next we have the work with Selenium API, that is code level, and also record level. Okay, recording. Right. So I will briefly explain because we have our note also. Uh, I will briefly explain how to do a recording of using Selenium ID or the browser plugin and playback it and see whether test pass or fail. Right. But very simple thing. Because in the exam they only ask very simple things. So you can go to Selenium website, Selenium website. So then there's something called Selenium IDE. This is what we use for record level testing. Right? IDE. This is the WebDriver. That is the code level testing. You can see WebDriver, IDE, Grid. That is for more distributed level testing. Right. So because we are going to do the recording and testing, that is the easiest one to understand, do. Let's say read more part of the Selenium IDE. Right. So it shows some UI screens. So then you can see Chrome download, Firefox download. So it looks like it support only Chrome and Firefox. I thought even it support Edge. But it looks like no support for Edge. So I tried Chrome plugin, but you may try maybe in your environment it might work. For example, if I go to the Chrome download, of course this is my Firefox plugin. Okay. So therefore you need to go to that using Chrome. I will copy it and paste it to the Chrome because if you are going to install a plugin to the Chrome, you must open it in Chrome. You can see uh, so this is what I get. Is this Chrome? Yeah, this is the Chrome one. Let's click on. Now you can see this extension is no longer available because it doesn't follow best practices for Chrome extensions. I hope this is a temporary issue. Okay. So therefore, with my Chrome browser, definitely I can't test it because with my old laptop, even now I can test it. But with my new laptop, I downloaded the new latest Chrome. It looks like the latest Chrome doesn't support Selenium ID, maybe some conflict. But don't worry, you have the Firefox extension as well. You can see Firefox download. So then make sure you are in the Firefox browser. Of course, I'm in Firefox browser. So then you can just, this will be add to the browser add-on because here we have the remove button because I have already installed. It's like installing a plugin. Just click on the button and it will be installed. So here the button is remove because already this plugin is in my Firefox browser. So therefore I have the remove option, not the add option. But you will be getting the add option at the beginning. So then you need to right. So then you need to install, add it to your browser, Firefox plugin or Chrome plugin. I hope Chrome plugin will again work soon, but definitely Chrome Firefox plugin is work. So once you install it, you will get in your browser, there will be something like this add-on. You can see when I click, this is after installing the add-on. Right? You can see Selenium ID. Right? පාට හොයාගන්න බැරි නම් add-ons වලට ගිහිල්ලා බලන්න. එතකොට හම්බ වෙයි. That is after installing, right? After installing. Right, so now you can open it. add-on එකට click කරන්න. මේ interface එක තමයි ඔයාලට මොන browser එකෙත් එන්නේ. හරි. Chrome එකකට එන්නේ මේ වගේ එකක්. So then you can see record a new test in a new project. So those are the options. Test, recorded new test in new project. open an existing project, create a new project, close Selenium ID. So that we close it. Okay. At any time, again, you can click on the. So I will say record the test in a new project. So then it will ask, uh, what is your product name? Name of the project. I will say SEM6 PRJ1 project 1 and say OK. So then it will ask which URL or web you want to test. If you are still developing that, maybe it's your local web server that you try to access like localhost, blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, maybe IP address. But if it is domain, ideally, it will be domain name, right? Maybe sampathbank.lk slash create account. So I will be adding something like Python website. Python. Like python.org. Hey, you can add anything, okay? I'm in Firefox, okay. Go up a window. Right, better. මම දෙනවා මෙතන python.org. ඒ කියන්නේ Python වෙබ්සයිට් එක තමයි ටෙස්ට් කරන්න හදන්නේ. මොකද මම ගාව local host test එකක් මේ වෙලාවේ run කරන්න නැති හන්ද. So then start recording. දැන් ඔයාලට කරන්න ඕන දේ මෙතන you can see there's a button called Selenium ID is recording. And now you can do whatever you want, like go to a particular page, like let's say you want to go to download page and Android, macOS. So then you can write down at any time, you can right click in your browser and then you have something called Selenium ID as a menu item also. So there you have different assertions. මතකද අපි assert equal වගේව කරා unit test එක. Assertions, right? Verify and so on. So let's say assertion. So maybe you can say assertion of title. මේක තමයි lazy assertion එක title. ඔයාට ඕන මේකේ title එක test කරන්න. So ඔයා title එක දාන්න ඕනේ. මෙතන තියෙන title එක ගන්නවා. You can see Python release blah 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 for macOS. මම ගියේ macOS එකනේ. Then you can say you can close it. Browser close කරන්න. ඒ කියන්නේ recording ඉවරයි. So then you get something like this, or recording ඉවරයි දැන්. So new test has been created. And these are some steps. Okay, and it's related to python.org. You can URL එකක් තියෙනවා. So then you can say stop. Recording stop කරන්න. Time එක වැදගත් නැහැ. ඔයාලට ටික වෙලා ගියාට කමන්නේ එහෙම time යන්නේ නැහැ. Run කරද්දී ටට ගන්න. So then you can say stop it. ආයිත් යහනවා test එකේ නමක් දෙන්න කියලා. මම දුන්නේ මොකද්ද? SEM4 මොකද්ද නේ SEM6 මොකක්ද එකක් දුන්නේ. ඒ වල් ළඟින් යන එකක් දෙන්නම්කෝ. ඒ නමම දෙන්නම්කෝ. Test 1. Say okay. Right. දැන් මේකට ඔයාලට multiple test දාන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට මේක test suite එකක්. But right now my test suite has only one test. That is to go to the Python side, go to the download Mac OS version and check whether the title is this. මේකෙන් test කරන්න title එක මේකද කියලා. කවුරු හරි වරද්දලා දුන්නොත් එම title එක code එක ලියද්දී එතකොට මේ test case එක fail වෙනවා. Right? මොකද developer කෙනෙක් වරද්දන්න පුළුවන් නේ. සමහරට title එක corrupt පේන්නේ නැහැ දැන් web page. එතකොට මේක fail වෙනවා. Right. So now we have recorded, but we have not run it. Now let's run it. You can see here run current test or run all test. දැන් මට තව තියෙන එක test එකයිනේ. දැන් මේක තව test add කරන්න පුළුවන්. I will say run current test. ඒතර all test කිව්වත් ඒකම තමයි වෙන්නේ. දැන් අර browser එක open වුණා. ඊට පස්සේ ගියා download page එකට. ඔයාලට බලන් හිටියා නම් ටක් ගාලා download page එකට ගියා. ඊට පස්සේ ආ එතනින් check කරනවා title එක මේ තියෙන title එකද කියලා. ඉතින් මෙතෙන්දි title එක වෙනස් වෙන විදියක් නැහැ නේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ අතරතුර title එක වෙනස් කරන්නේ නැහැ නේ. ඒකන්ද test එක pass වුණා. test එක pass වුණා. හැබැයි මම මේ test එකේ මේ title එක වෙනස් කරොත් හදිස්සියවත් දැන් සමහර ලෝකෙ වෙන්නේ අනිත් පැත්තට හරි. මම හිතනවා මේ target එකේ තියෙනවනේ මේ python org කියලා නෙමෙයි python.com කියලා. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක තමයි මගේ requirement එක. නමුත් කවුරු හරි කෝඩ් කරපු එක්කෙනා මේක වරද්දලා org කියලා දාලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා අපි හිතුවා. target එක. මොකද මේක title එකෙන් check කරන්නේ. දැන් අපි run කරොත් අනිවාර්යෙන් test එක fail වෙයි. දැන් test fail. Because this expected title is different from the current title. Because expected title we have just hyphen 5 character Python com, but in reality what we get is python.org. So නොහොම අපිට test suite එකක් හදලා දෙන්න. ඒතර සමහර test pass සමහර test fail. ඒතර fail වෙන test වලින් අපි දන්නා මොන හරි වරද්දලා. නැත්තම් code change කරද්දී break කරලා. Okay. අයිති ඔතන මේ ඕක විතරක් නෙමෙයි ඊළඟට එවෙන pop up එක ඒ pop up එකේ මොන හරි submit කරනවා data enter එකට ඒ level එකනම අපිට මේකත් එක්ක interact කරලා ඊට පස්සේ එන result එක double check කරන්න පුළුවන්. එන්නේ මොන page එකද? එන message එක මොකද්ද? success the error and so on. So this is one way of testing. Web testing using Selenium, manual testing. But the second approach is, sorry, manual testing means that automated testing using recording. Okay. And we can test various things, not just title. But don't worry, in the exam, they will not ask so complicated things. So the other approach is coding. That is the test, not the test suite, rather the API. Okay. That of course this bit technical thing, right? You can write some code to test, like load a browser, check, but insert some data, submit, and check whether you get the expected response and so on. And that we'll discuss in the next class, because we are going to write a small test code. Test code means code that tests your UI using Python, using PyCharm IDE, and then using IntelliJ or Java using IntelliJ IDE. So make sure you have both latest PyCharm and IntelliJ. කොහොමද PyCharm තියාගෙන ඉන්නේ හොඳයි නේ Python ඉගෙන ගන්නවා නම්. Because we are going to write few tests using Python as well as Java in the next class. ඊළඟට අපේ note එකක් follow කරනවා. දැන්ටත් ඔයාලා මේක කියලා තියෙන එක මෙහෙම කරලා බලන්න. ටෙස්ට් කරලා බලන්න වැඩේ වෙනවද කියලා ඕනේ. හරි. Right. So then in the next time when we do QA, we will finish this, and then we have continuous integration CI/CD. හරි. ඒක ටිකක් ටෙක්නිකල් කතාවක්. ඒක ටෙස්ටිං වලට වඩා මේ කොහොමද ඔයා මේ cloud environment එකේ deploy කරන්න කියන එක තමයි කතා කරන්නේ. That is another technical term, technical topic. Okay. Right. So ඒකත් අපි ටික වෙලා අරගෙන කරනවා ඒක හන්දා. එතකොට QA subject එක ඉවරයි කියන්නේ ඉවරට ඉවරයි. ආයෙ මම revision කරන්න මුකුත් යන්නේ නැහැ. Because I past papers එක්කනේ කරගෙන. Right. We stop at this point, right? Thank you.